What is up, Bodyweight exercise fans? In today's video, we'll be covering how to master gymnastic-ring chest-dips all the way from being a complete beginner to mastering more advanced techniques on how to maximize chest activation and make the exercise as challenging as possible. Also keep in mind that you can find timeline stamps in the top comment below and the description of this video in case you want to go back to some parts, rewatch them or skip through some parts, although I do recommend that you watch the whole thing no matter how advanced you are. And also remember that this is part 2 of my series Gymnastic-ring Chest-dips. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure you do that. But enough talk for now, and let's dive right into the practice. Now, just as in push-ups, a typical mistake that I'll see a lot of people do, which will cause, first of all, shoulder problems and a lack of recruitment of the chest muscle, is rounding the shoulders forward as you descend into the rep. To solve this problem, there's a very easy solution that you can apply on both exercises, and that is keeping your shoulder blades retracted and depressed, or what I like to call the shoulder blade lockdown position. To practice this from a standing position, roll your shoulders back and down, keeping them pinched together as far away of your ears as possible. And once you start understanding this position, start applying it during your dips. From the moment you get on the bars or rings, keep your shoulders depressed and slightly retracted and maintain this position all through the entire rep. Now, keep in mind that it's going to take some work to fix your technique if you've been using bad form for a long time. You know, if every time you're doing push-ups or dips, you're used to rounding your shoulders forward, it's going to be quite difficult to reverse this, but all it takes is patience, and keep in mind that even if you start with really good form in the beginning, your shoulders will almost reflexively want to get into that forward rounded position the moment you reach the most challenging position of the rep, which is usually the lowest part. I see this a lot with people that I train that have been using bad form for years, and now we want to start fixing it. So it's going to take some patience. It's going to take you to set aside your ego. You're going to be doing less reps when you're using good form. That's not bad. That's actually a good sign. That means that you're fixing things. So stick to it, and I promise that the payback is going to be a lot greater, both for shoulder health and chest activation. Learning to properly hinge forward is essential when it comes to chest activation during dips. To perform a perfect hinge, you want to focus on 2 main things. Number 1 is making sure that your elbows are close to the body, pointing backwards as you descend into the dip. And number 2 is again maintaining your shoulder blades in the locked back down position during the whole repetition. If you focus on these 2 tips, hinging forward will almost happen by itself, and the ideal angle you want to aim for is about 45 degrees. If you're wondering about head position, avoid dropping your head too low, but also avoid leaning too much to the back. Instead, you want to aim for a neutral position that almost aligns with the rest of your spine and your gaze looking down and slightly forward. Dip depth can be quite a confusing topic, especially if you do some digging around online. But in a nutshell, what you want to keep in mind is that you want to avoid going too low, especially after you pass those 90 degrees. The main reason here being that after a certain point, your chest is less activated and you get more tension in the shoulder area. You're adding a lot more load on connective tissues and tendons of the shoulders, which makes you more prone to shoulder injury and activates less your chest. That being said, I wouldn't say that I'm a big supporter of the strict 90-degree angle, because first of all, some people can't even go that low, and other people can go a lot lower without having any problems. Now, If you want to experiment a little bit, if you want to see how low should you be going, here's an easy way, something that you can test with ideally someone that has a basic idea with anatomy, someone like a doctor, a physiotherapist, anybody that is into the more medical sciences. So what you want to do is have your friend take your less mobile arm or your stiffer shoulder and very slowly test your range of motion by bringing your arm in shoulder extension with your elbow loose, bent and pointing backwards. If there's resistance and if you feel your elbow wanting to flare out before you even reach parallel, this means that even going down to 90 degrees is challenging for your shoulders and that you have to work on shoulder mobility and flexibility. Although this is a topic for a completely different video, here are some exercises that I would recommend in this case that you can add to your preparation before doing your dips. Just before you warm up, you can add some soft tissue work for the pecs. A really good stretch is also the gymnastic ring shoulder extension stretch. Start easily, don't put a lot of load here, and slowly increase the range of motion if you feel that your shoulders are starting to loosen up. And a final favorite exercise of mine are shoulder dislocations. Make sure you start really wide here again, and if you feel your shoulders starting to loosen up, you can slowly grab the band a little bit more narrow. On the other hand, if you have that extra range of motion to go below parallel, you can experiment with gradually adding a few inches of range of motion and see if you're feeling that you're getting better chest activation that way. Basically, the moment you feel more tension and stretch in the shoulders and less tension in the chest, you'll know that you've gone too deep. Remember that the goal is to stretch the middle part of the pectoral muscles and not the tendons in the shoulder. Personally, what I do in the beginning of my workout after I've warmed up my shoulder area and my whole upper body well is I like to have a few easy sets. These are still warm-up sets where I go quite deeper than 90 degrees. This way I feel that I get a nice loaded stretch for my shoulders and my chest. And this is a range of motion that is comfortable for me, that I know that I do have. So, it's not painful for my shoulders. It's not causing any problems. And this is why you'll see me pretty often, going quite deeper than 90 degrees. But after that, once I'm done with my warm-up sets during the main part of the workout, I'll only go a few centimeters below parallel because that's where I get the maximum tension basically for my chest. Okay, so far we've covered all the basics regarding technique, and from this point on, I'll give you some progressions on how you can build your strength in order to get to the point that you can do gymnastic ring chest dips. Starting from a complete beginner, step one is being able to do at least 3 sets of 15 perfect push-ups. And if you haven't seen my previous video on how to do really good form push-ups with maximum tension again for the chest, make sure that you watch that first. Keep in mind that most people think that they're doing push-ups the right way, but very few really focus on clean technique and muscle activation. So once again, make sure you can do 3 sets of 15 perfect push-ups with about 1 minute of rest in between. Next, before jumping on the rings, you want to first of all master regular chest dips. So make sure you can get a minimum of 3 sets of 12 repetitions with 1 minute rest in between, using stable parallel bars that are ideally built in the ground, like the ones you can find at a calisthenics park. If that's not an option for you, you could use an angled kitchen countertop. If you're looking to invest on some equipment, make sure that you go for a dip station that connects into one solid piece and avoid using independent parallels in the beginning, since these can be too unstable for a beginner. Mastering 3 sets of 30-second static holds on the rings will help you get accustomed to the ring's instability, and it's a good progression to work on before attempting gymnastic ring dips too prematurely with bad technique and risk for injury. A little side note here is that while you're working on gymnastic ring static holds, you want to keep on working on your basic dips as well, because one exercise is an isometric exercise, the other one is a concentric exercise, and they work on different things, and in order to get closer to our ultimate goal, our gymnastic ring chest dip, we want to get stronger at both. So what I recommend is that you start your workout with gymnastic ring static holds. That way you're working on that instability while your neuromuscular system is still fresh, and after that you also incorporate your basic dips. Regarding leg position, you can use one of our two main positions here, either a legs crossed behind you position or a legs in front of you hollow body position. From my experience as a coach, as I already said, I find that for some reason most people find the hollow body position here more comfortable, even though it activates your core as well. It feels more stable for most people. So I would say try both and work on what feels most comfortable for you. The great thing with gymnastic rings is that you can adjust the distance between the rings at the perfect width for you, something not possible if you're training at a fixed dip station, where it is pretty often the case that the bars are too spread apart, and usually something that causes shoulder problems in the long run. Especially in the beginning, I recommend that you start with narrow width, since this will help you with stability by allowing your arms to press against the straps, which gives you more control and stability. So start with shoulder width minus 3 or 4 inches, and when you start feeling more comfortable in the rings, you can spread the straps at exactly shoulder width. Now, when you get started with your first dips on the gymnastic rings, it's going to be quite overwhelming for a lot of people, since it's going to feel so much more different than it feels on rigid, stable bars. Muscle groups like your shoulders and your abs have to learn to collaborate on a whole new level while you are trying to maintain the rings accurately below the direction of force. But by working on half reps, meaning reps with half the range of motion, or even smaller if required, you can build up a range of motion steadily without risking injury by suddenly losing control and bringing your shoulders in a weak position. So work on getting at least 3 sets with 1 minute of rest in between of 8 half repetitions. And when that starts to feel easy, start increasing your range of motion and aim for getting close to parallel or even lower, depending on your range of motion. Regarding the lower body, I recommend that you switch back to the legs crossed behind you position. This will make the exercise easier. It will help you hinge forward and get more chest activation. But later on, if you feel that the exercise is quite easy and you feel comfortable with experimenting again with different positions, you can switch back to the legs in front of you hollow body position. Now, before we end today's video, I wanted to mention that for those who are skeptical when it comes to dips and shoulder health, personally, I believe that it's one of the best exercises to keep your shoulders mobile, to keep your shoulders healthy and strong. I believe that it's a perfectly normal, natural, and functional movement for most people with healthy shoulders. And as long as you take it easy, as long as you build your strength gradually and you focus on today's progressions, there's no reason to be afraid of this exercise. That was all for today. If you have any extra questions, make sure you leave them below. If you're interested in personal coaching with me, you can always send me an email at info@bodyweightmuscle.com. And until next time, keep on training.